do a little bit of recon. So I dive to the bottom. The reason I do this is so that I get a better angle on the rocks. I can see right into them, and on top of that, it makes me look a lot smaller to topwater fish. So sometimes something will be swimming near me, and they think I'm really big, so when I'm scaling the bottom like this, they don't really get as alarmed. When I went back down, I was originally targeting the hole on the left, but then I looked up, and I found like 6 lobsters just staring at me, and this was overwhelming, a little bit overstimulating, because I have never seen this many lobsters in my life. So I was like, okay, let me go to the top, get a deep breath, and regroup. At this point, I'm planning my attack, and I think they know because they're displaying the perfect defense position. So the reason they call them Florida spiny lobsters is because those little antennas or whiskers on them are pretty much extremely serrated. And when they're all pointing them at you, it's how they deter their predators. So you see they're all pointing it in the same direction, and this group is doing the same exact thing. It's a different hole, but they're all like, yo, if you come near me, I will stab you with this thing. On top of that, you see how they all move as a unit. They are very aware that if they're singled out, their chances of survival are almost cut in half. So usually if you find one lobster, there are going to be multiple in the area. I find a hole over top of them, and my thought process is that if I reach in and catch one, we're in the clear, but if I don't, they're going to be pushed out into the open and will be a lot easier to catch. And you see, I follow my game plan. I reach in there and look, and dude, there was a hoss of a lobster. I'm like, I need to get this. I need to grab him by the knuckles of his antenna, but he was too fast. And something really important whenever you're diving, whether it's alone or with someone, is shallow water blackout. This happens when essentially you don't realize that you're running out of breath, and before you know it, your vision starts to blur and you pass out in the middle of the water. Now, this is especially dangerous for me because I don't have a dive buddy with me. I am completely alone. Once I re-upped on oxygen, I went back down and I noticed that the lobsters weren't in their original place, but rather in these little crevices. And this is actually good for me because lobsters really only are able to shoot directly backwards. So when they have this rock behind them, I know that they're not really able to escape too easily, and I just reach in, and this one was just cake. I got him very easily. Now, the main thing on my mind, obviously, you guys notice I don't have any lobster equipment on me, and I can't even measure this thing. So and on top of that, I've only ever caught 2 or 3 lobsters in my entire life. So I told myself, no, I know there are bigger lobsters somewhere in this reef. I just need to find them. On top of that, I was diving from shore, so I would have to swim all the way back, and I didn't want to do that unless I got 2 nice-sized lobsters. And you guys see, this guy was trying to defend himself with his spikes, but he was just so screwed. He was in a corner, and I got him, and before I knew it, he was mine. He was freaking mine. Now, obviously, it's one thing to grab a lobster with both hands, but to only have one hand and a live lobster in the other is a whole different task. So I'm going under, and I'm just trying to snatch anyone I can, and I grab this one lobster right by his knuckle, and I drag him out, feeling like I'm the freaking Undertaker. I start to ascend to the top, and honestly, I'm feeling like the man right now. I have 2 nice-sized lobsters in my hand, and this guy decides he's not freaking done, but not only that he's going back to his home, and I was pissed. Honestly, I could not believe that I just let that happen. And maybe I'm the only person that this happens to. Let me know in the comments, but I get so competitive with animals, and right now, I feel like that lobster is better than me, and oh my goodness, I hate losing more than I like winning. So I'm looking at this lobster, I'm like, is he of size? Is he not? I'm considering going in, and then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna settle. I'm getting a second lobster. I'm glad I did 2 because right below me were 2 huge ones, and you can't see it, but behind this hole is a pretty much open area, and I need to push them out over to there, and this guy falls for it. He shoots out into the open, and it pretty much signed his death wish, and I did a death grip on him, but then this other guy got away. Luckily, there wasn't a very deep hole for him to go into, so I was able to grab him, and then we ascend to the top, and the sun is just hitting the lobsters like perfectly right here. It was so pretty, and I felt so accomplished and confident that these guys were actually legal. Confidence isn't enough, though, so I found 2 lobster fishermen right on shore that actually had the tools to make sure that they were illegal. Once I found out that I was good, I put them on the beach towel and got right back into the warm bath water. Something to take note of is that this swim I'm doing is over 100 yards, so it's not like I just swam into, it was actually pretty exhausting, and I left my pole spear out here, and I was super lucky to be able to find it. I totally forgot where I left it. I go to the bottom, start doing some recon again, and I noticed right in front of me is a school of 3 black drum, and one of them is way bigger than the other one. Honestly, they're all pretty solid size, but one of them was especially bigger, and I was like, okay, I need to go back to the top, take a deep breath, and these are the guys I'm gonna hunt. Now, the reason I'm so excited about these fish is because they mainly eat barnacles and other crustaceans, and because of that, their meat is extremely sweet compared to other fish that are more mild that eat carnivorous meat. Whenever you're lining up a shot on a fish, you wanna wait until it's completely sideways towards you so that you have more area to hit. And you see this guy, I absolutely stoned. I got him right, well, okay, maybe I didn't stone him, he's still swimming. Not to worry though, that's why we brain the fish. We do that by sticking a sharp object into its head, and then afterwards we want to cut its throat so that the meat doesn't get contaminated with the blood. So this is pretty much eating the fish. After that, you start to gut, and I like to scale the fish in the middle of the water. Sometimes this does bring in sharks. If you are afraid of sharks, maybe don't gut and bleed your fish in the middle of the water with you. Get it out as soon as possible. I'm putting this black drum on a metal stringer, and this is going to act as a flasher and also just a ever-going scent that's going to tell other predatory fish in the area where I am. Once he was secured, I went back down to the bottom because I wanted to make it look like I was small. And something I want to bring attention to here is I want you to notice how rapidly I'm kind of moving my head and swimming around, and this is me getting really competitive competitive, but this is not good because it means my heart rate is increasing and I'm using oxygen a lot faster, which means I could black out a lot faster. So I stopped myself. I'm like, yo, I need to be safe. I need to get to the top for at least 2 minutes. And that's what I did. I just chilled at the top because I needed a rest. And if you guys want to make this content a little bit interactive, hold your breath while I'm underwater with me, because then you realize, whoa, this is actually very difficult. Finally, I find a hole that I think is going to be easy mode, right? I see these whiskers sticking out and I'm like, you know what? I'm so over trying to go against all these strategies and angles, and I just reach in, and sometimes you just need cojones. You know what I mean? You just need to reach in and grab the freaking lobster. As I'm swimming in, maybe 10 yards from shore, I see a giant school of ladyfish. And take note of the size of these ladyfish because they are usually not anywhere near this big. I'm like scrambling to get my equipment, and on top of that, this is only like 3 feet of water. The biggest obstacle is definitely the lobster in my right hand. My thought process here is let me get the lobster in between my legs while I load my spear, and I don't know if it slipped my mind or what, but these are Florida spiny lobsters. That I serrated my entire leg when I did that. This school of ladyfish is doing their only defense mechanism called schooling, and the reason this is so effective is because it's so hard to single one of them out. They're going so fast, and it's extremely disorienting for any predator, including myself, to look at them. It's like you can't even pick one. Now, as this next school is swimming by, I noticed there's a bluefish. It's way bigger than all the other ones, and that was the guy I got. This is what stoning a fish means. You notice how it just completely stopped moving? That means I either disconnected its spine or went right through its brain. Either way, it's not going anywhere. Now, the problem with catching ladyfish is that they don't have a lot of area to hit, especially when you have a 3-prong that's so spread out like the one that I have. It's also crazy how many ladyfish are actually here. I have no idea. I couldn't even imagine how large the school is. It's actively circling me the entire time, so even though it looks like they're all traveling in a straight line, this is actually entirely around me. This shot that I took, I actually hit the ladyfish, but it didn't pierce the skin, and that's why it's so important to have a spear that you're comfortable with. The heavier the spear, the easier it is going to penetrate the fish. Right here, you can see my eyes following specific fish, trying to single one out from the school, and then this one just flew a little too close to me, and that's the one I targeted. I angle my spear up so that the fish isn't able to fly off. Even though the 3-prong has barbs, making it so that the fish can't just get right off, it's still important to put that forward pressure so that that fish is pushed into the spear deeper. At this point, all of my equipment started beeping. The GoPro was telling me it was dying, so was the drone, so this was going to be my last couple of dives. I get down there and I see one of the black drums that I let go from earlier, and something I really try to take advantage of is when the fish is not in line of sight of me. So for instance, I won't really swim fast until a fish is behind a rock and can't see that I'm swimming fast. It just so happened that this guy totally caught on to me and dipped. One of my favorite fish to eat on this reef are mangrove snappers, and they're usually pretty abundant. So when I find this guy, I was like, okay, let me take my time, sneak up behind him. Obviously, it's within range of my spear, but if it turns sideways, I'm going to have a lot more area to hit. What we could learn from losing this fish is that I didn't apply forward pressure after I actually hit the fish. So I bet you if I were to push forward and really make sure that the water pressure on the other side of the fish made it go into the barbs more, it would have probably stayed on, but I didn't follow up. When I looked down, I saw a shark, but luckily it was a little puppy dog of a nurse shark, and what he's doing is scanning the rocks trying to look for lobsters because they mainly eat crustaceans. So seeing how many lobsters are on this set of rocks, I just knew he was having a heyday. After coming up where I was from the shark, I looked in the distance and I saw this eel, and usually these guys have terrible eyesight. Like, you could be right in front of them trying to feed something and they won't even see it. So I started to go up to him and I thought I would be able to capture him on camera, but I don't even know how he saw me because I swear these guys are practically blind. Right here I see a sea urchin, and usually I like to crack these guys open and feed the fish around me, but as I'm playing with it, I see a perfect sushi grade fish, which is a jack, flying towards me. The reason it's good sushi grade is because it has nice consistent meat, so I quickly load my spear, and the way that I got this fish was wild because I saw that I only pierced its lip, and that's similar to how you do it when you're like fishing with a line and a hook. So the fact that I didn't penetrate the meat means it's even going to be better sushi grade. And I know what you're thinking, Nick, that's not a very big fish, and I know it's not the biggest, but my aunt told me she wanted sushi, and this is the perfect amount for one person. Now that I caught food for my family, it's time to head to our next location. And to spearfish here, we're gonna need a special weapon. When you're hunting with a bow and arrow, you need to make sure you have incredibly good aim because there's nothing connected to your bow. Started with a hogfish in front of me, and when I took the shot, instantly a pretty large reef shark came into the area. Every time the hogfish shakes, it's giving out little vibrations to the shark, saying that there's an easy meal in the area. When this happens, it'll fire up the shark, and it's important that you keep eyes on it at all times. If at any point you start to swim away from the shark, it's gonna identify you as a prey item and start to pursue you as the meal. We got the hogfish off the end of my spear and started swimming in a different direction while keeping a close eye on it, and our spears pointed towards the shark. We lost it, and I came across a mangrove snapper above some live coral. I hit him, but it wasn't enough to penetrate through the other side of his body, so at this point, I need to hunt him down. Luckily, my first shot was a good one, and I found him hiding underneath this little bit of coral at the bottom of the ocean. He wasn't really swimming anywhere, he was bleeding out, so it was a pretty easy shot, and at this point, I'm scanning scanning the area, making sure no sharks are coming in to steal my food. Mangrove snappers here have to be 10 inches, and I always use my hands as a nice reference point to understand how big the fish is. As I was measuring it, the shark came right into point of view one more time. As I swam back to the boat, I held my arrow above the water so that it wouldn't be letting out a bunch of fish scent and attracting other predators nearby. It was tough though because there were sharks in between me and the boat, and the only way out is through. So eventually I put it back in and I got back to hunting. A barjack was in the middle of the water column. Usually you'll find these guys in the open ocean. I took a nice shot, and because this is a smaller fish, it wasn't able to swim with my arrow for very long, so it kind of just sunk to the bottom of the ocean like an airplane would if it were going down. This is always the most dangerous situation. If a shark is going to come and surprise you out of nowhere, now is the time. So as I descend, I'm looking all over the place, making sure that nothing's coming up on me. We wound up making chum out of it, which is debatable whether it's actually smart with so many sharks in the area, but it was the decision that we made. The chum brought in a couple of barracuda, and you guys know I'm always enjoying hunting those, but below the barracuda was a mangrove snapper. These are the most abundant fish on the reef. He's under this cave, and when I take the shot, he's freaking out, sending signals to the sharks all around us, so we need to make sure we secure it fast. This mangrove was about a foot long, and the chum was definitely working from the jack earlier because it was bringing in a whole lot of them. It's important whenever you're lining up on a fish to really take your time, and sometimes you even need to lead your arrow. Hit another mangrove snapper, but it got off the end of my spear tip, and it must have been bleeding a whole lot because then the sharks started to come in real close.
There's a reef shark in the area. 3-4 feet, manageable and not fired up.
As I was looking for the mangrove that I lost, I came across a light blue parrotfish. These guys are super good for the reef. They actually poop sand. So most of the sand that you see created in earth are from parrotfish. In Hawaii, they eat these, but here in Florida, they're protected. So you usually just let them be. You could eat them in various parts of the world, and they are pretty good. I've had them before, but they're just such a sweet little fish. You don't really want to bother them too much. This ledge just kept on providing, and I couldn't help but continue to come back to it, especially because it was so beautiful and overgrown. Like the coral just looked almost like it was out of the movie Avatar. Really taking my time as I go around this coral head because you never know what's going to be around a crack or in a crevice. Sometimes you'll find a lobster. Other times a fish will be in a corner that you just never saw coming. But in my exploration, I found another barracuda. I want you to take note of the size of this one. It's really not that long, maybe 2.5 feet. So I expected if I were to hit it for it to just sink to the bottom like an airplane, which is not what happened at all. My buddy had to go get my arrow for me because I was out of breath from chasing him. So I returned back to the same ledge I was providing, and I found another mangrove kind of just hanging out. One thing I could have done better here is that there's so much live coral all over the place that I really should have waited for the fish to be a little bit farther away from it rather than shoot into the live coral. It's really easy when you're in the moment and you see something and you kind of just want to take the shot, but being patient is equally as important. I must have not pulled my arrow back enough because he got off the end of my spear, but I hit him in a point where he was bleeding out pretty heavy. So when I went to the bottom, he was kind of just laying there, and it was an easy shot to take. He wasn't going anywhere. I have a habit whenever I shoot a fish, I'll usually start to bleed and gut it immediately, and this will make for a better quality fish. The gills are kind of like the lungs of any fish, and that's where a lot of their blood is going to be stored, so I kind of just started to rip them out, and it brought in another really big shark. This one was an aggressive reef shark, and rather than stay in the area, my buddy and I decided to go on the boat just because it was so sharky. We didn't want to accidentally keep our eyes on one of them, and then another one comes up behind us, and before we know it, we're getting bit. The next spot we went to was on the same reef, just a little bit farther down, hopefully to throw off the trail of the sharks, and there were a bunch of big-eyed toro in this area. Big-eyed toro are a bright red fish, and they have really big bulging eyes, and the reason behind this is because they usually hunt at night. They're primarily nocturnal. For that reason, they can't really see very well during the day. I imagine what they see is kind of like if a flashlight were shining in your eyes 24/7. It's just they can't see anything. I hit a good shot on one of them, and he's kind of tweaking out. You can see I cut the bottom of his neck and into his gill area. So before I know it, this guy's gonna bleed out and bring in more sharks. So I was like, oh my god. So I just decided to go up. Rather than chase down the fish and cause a bunch of commotion on the reef, there was a batch that wasn't really too afraid of me right under this ledge. So I just speared the next one. Whenever you're pursuing a fish that's on the end of an arrow, like I mentioned, you always have to do checks for sharks, especially when you're in an area where you know they're present. Reef sharks are real deal right here.
They're beautiful, man. Right, bro? This looks delicious.
At the time we were hunting them, my dive buddy and I had never tasted a big eye red toro, but after having them, I can confirm that the meat meat is very different than most other fish. They've got a super firm white meat to them, and it's almost kind of like a chicken fillet, which it's not as soft as some of the other snappers or things that you'll get out of the ocean. Their brains are also at the top of their heads, so it's really easy to put them out once you get them. And right here we have a reef shark kind of coming close, I guess catching all of these fish. He finally started to smell the blood in the water. Most of the time a shark will only start competing with you if they see the fish on the end of your line or arrow is not under control. But if you have it in your hands, for the most part, they'll just glance and then look away. The reason for that is because in the wild, sharks generally won't attack each other unless they have a really big size advantage on them. When you think about how large we are in the water, naturally I'm 5'6", but then take the fins that are on me and that adds another like foot or so. I wound up being about 7 feet in the water with all of my equipment. Shark doesn't want to get into a fight. They're looking for easy meals, so they're really just looking to steal something. Anytime you look at them, they'll just swim away. Nonetheless, we wound up getting out of that area just in case there was a shark that we didn't see, and we came to an area that had a pretty big wreck on it. That's what all this sheet metal is, and you see there are a bunch of mangrove snappers. I take a shot at this one, but I hit him a little bit high on his back. This wasn't good because it wasn't a fatal shot, so I knew I was gonna have to chase this fish, but I ran out of breath, so I went to the top, gathered it. A lot of the times a mangrove snapper, once you hit them, will go hole up somewhere, and by hole up I mean just find a crevice somewhere where they feel protected. In this instance, he went to the top of this sheet metal and deep inside of it too, so it was kind of a hard shot to take, and I was aiming for so long that I kind of, sometimes when I'm aiming, I totally forget that I have to take a break for oxygen, and I missed him and had to leave my arrow down there because I couldn't breathe.
I almost died.
I take a drop down, and the first thing I see is a pretty large Goliath grouper, but they actually get 6 to 7 times bigger than this. As much as I want to eat a large grouper, these guys are protected where I'm at, but it means that there are big fish in the area that we will be able to hunt. When I came up from my drop, my buddy and I locked on to this 4-foot barracuda, and shooting at these is pretty much guaranteed to lose your arrow unless you stone it the first shot you hit. A stone shot means that right when you put the arrow into it, the fish passes away, which you can see that did not happen. This thing started running. I wound up having to chase this thing with an arrow into it. The good news is that the arrow is pretty heavy, which means it was weighing the fish down. It wasn't as fast as it normally would be, but I was also scared because this thing has really sharp teeth and can turn at me on any moment. Unfortunately, this was the last time I saw that arrow. The fish wound up getting away with the arrow in him, and more than likely a shark is going to wind up eating him by the end of the day. I got a new arrow, and below that barracuda was a decent-sized barjack, and these guys are really good sushi. So when I put one into him, this is not a fish that could carry the arrow for miles. I was able to recover him pretty easily, which was good because it gave me a boost of confidence for hunting bigger game. We moved to a little bit deeper of a spot that was 45 feet deep. I took the trek down there, and it's important that whenever you're doing a deep dive, you really calm your mind. So much of diving is mental, and I wind up checking under this ledge very slowly. This calm demeanor is keeping my heart rate low and making it so that I can really take time when I aim at this lionfish that I see. A pretty funny behavior that the lionfish displays is that they'll usually pick a ledge and be upside down under it. It's really only peculiar to the lionfish. It's also important to note that lionfish are extremely venomous. All of those spines that are sticking out from it, if they stick you, can send you in the hospital or swell any part of your body up massively. I personally go into anaphylactic shock, so I always have my dive buddy kill these things. He's putting a knife about a 1/4 inch into his brain. That's the lucky part about lionfish. Their brains are very close to the high part of their head. The most beautiful fish on the reef, if you ask me, and they really, really do taste delicious. Hunting that lionfish must have brought in some other predatory fish because before I knew it, we were surrounded by barracuda. I took aim on this one, and another one came up from the bottom that I didn't even see. He kind of just came into my line of sight, so I took the shot. My arrow dropped out of it, but I was paying attention to where it was swimming, and I wanted to hunt it down. I still had barracuda on my mind. Whenever a fish has discoloration in any part of its body, it means that you hit nerve damage, which is a good sign because it's going to be slower than usual. I take aim to hopefully secure this fish. It got away, but that really motivated me to catch something massive. The first spot we hit was a shipwreck, and most shipwrecks are covered with barracudas, but this one takes it to a whole different level. There must have been 500 in about a 200-yard radius. They can be pretty intimidating, and while I was hunting some mangroves on top of the shipwreck, every once in a while one would come into my point of view, and it was just such a large fish that it would scare me pretty bad because I would think it's a shark. Finally, I got over my fear of the barracudas, and I started to aim on what looked like lunch, and I actually hit the snapper, and it did get off the end of my spear tip, but I could tell that it broke its spine pretty good, which means it's only a matter of time before either I catch one or the barracuda tries to take it from me. We move to a little bit more shallow of an area. I see a really nice sized hogfish, and I aim at it just waiting for it to turn broadside to me, and broadside means that I get more surface area when I hit it. We were able to recover it, and it was quite a stud. It came in at like 19 inches. These are French angelfish right here, and you're not allowed to shoot them, but they're so pretty and curious. They always come up to you as if you're family. The French angelfish took me to a rock where there was a fish hold up there, and whenever you're aiming into a rock, you don't want to put too much pressure on the end of your spear tip, because if you do and you miss the fish, it'll wind up hitting the rock really hard, and A, you could kill live coral, but B, you could also dull your spear tip. My dive buddy pointed out a nice fish under this rock, and he was using a flashlight. If he didn't point it out, I would have never known that anything was in there. It was a nice red grouper. Not a lot of people know that red grouper are one of the best fish to eat in Florida. This one came in at about 22 inches. They need to be 20 inches for you to legally keep them. They have an extremely white meat, and they're also a very curious fish. Like, even if they're out in the open and you see one of them, they won't really run away from you. After putting the grouper in the cooler, I locked in on this sheep's head. Usually sheep's head are pretty smart, like they're running away from you pretty quickly once they get their eye on you. So every time I was sneaking up on this thing, I made sure to really cheat the corner and make sure that he wasn't able to see me fully. Finally though, he holed up, and this is kind of like a death sentence for any fish. If he's just in a hole and I have to shoot point blank, it's really good news.
Right?
We're in an area right now that is very shallow. It's only about 8 feet deep, so there are a lot of snappers. But with that being said, it's a pretty remote location, so it was very, very plentiful. This is a pretty good sized hogfish, and I was aiming at it, but I couldn't really tell if it was the legal size. And on top of that, we already had a nice hogfish. I still followed him, and this is a good example of when they think they're camouflage. Hogfish have this funny behavior where they'll kind of just change patterns on the drop of a dime, and you can see that that's what he did right there. Just because we're shallow doesn't mean that there's a lack of sharks. This nurse shark came like an inch from my face at one point. I turned my camera on late, but he scared the crap out of me. I went to go tell my buddy about the shark in the area, and when we came back to the chum cage, there was another red grouper right below it. And this is what I mean by they're not the smartest fish. Like, I'm literally an inch away from this thing, and usually any fish would run in this situation, but this guy is just totally taking the bait. No, that's not even an analogy. That's just legit. We weren't really sure he was the legal size, so we came up with a good strategy.
What if we catch him with our hands and then measure him and then release him if he's small?
I started trying to get really close to this red grouper, and it's kind of, you almost feel bad for him at one point because you're like, damn, why do you gotta be so dumb, At least make it so that it's a little bit of a hunt, but this guy was really just hanging so close, and he was so curious. I was trying to catch him with our hands because I don't want to just spear a fish and then it be undersized. I usually don't take a shot unless I know a fish is definitely legal. It wasn't letting me get my hands on him though, and I didn't want to stress it out, so I kept swimming and came across this stingray that was completely buried. Legally, I am allowed to harvest this thing. Like, I can shoot it and eat it, so leave a comment if you want me to catch a large stingray in one of my next videos. Usually they're hiding from a lot of the sharks in the area, and in the distance I saw a shark chasing after it, so I was like, oh gosh, I hope I didn't just blow his cover. We pulled so many good fish off of that area that we wanted to leave it be. You never want to take too many fish from one area because it can make it so that it's not a honey hole in the future, and you kind of just want to treat your environments right. The next spot we pulled up on was another shipwreck, and these are a bunch of nurse sharks cuddling, and not only are there nurse sharks in there, but there's a giant Goliath grouper in there with them. It's kind of a funny behavior nurse sharks have with Goliath groupers. They're always so calm, and they always cuddle together. I've noticed that. The nurse sharks are always so sweet. They're like little puppy dogs. In the same area, there were a bunch of angelfish, and this is another fish that's extremely curious, or for lack of a better word, dumb. Doesn't have the best survival skills. They're lucky they're protected. In Florida, anything that's pretty is pretty much not allowed to be shot, oddly enough. The privilege really is a thing here. There was a school of jack that were swimming by every once in a while, and I don't want to be haphazard and just take a shot. Sometimes they get spooked really easily, so I was waiting for them to calm down. As I was waiting, I looked down, and there was a giant Goliath grouper, and this is like Big Papa right here. Goliath groupers are extremely territorial, so anytime you get close to them, they start to bark at you really loud. Whenever they bark, it literally will shake your insides. It's the most bizarre feeling ever, and this guy was getting pissed. He just wanted me out of his space, and it's not like I was invading his space. I was hunting in the area, just like he was. Gotta share the ocean, bud. He wasn't happy about it, though. Then eventually I ran into his little brother. This is a little tiny Goliath grouper. They're kind of just chilling, and look, he's cuddling with a nurse shark, even more evidence that they're best friends. Finally, the Jack started to trust me a little bit, and as they started to trust me, I took aim and got one of the bigger ones in the school. At first, it seemed like he was going to take my arrow, but the weight of the arrow finally got to him, and he wasn't able to stay up for very long. All this spearfishing is making me hungry. Now, we'll get to cooking, but now I'm headed to a country for an intense diving competition.
They called me out all the way from Oregon, and even though I'm not in my home waters, this is light work. This is another day in the office. It's going to be a very bad day to be a fish and to be Nick Kratka.
And then there's me, an average guy that loves to spearfish, but is a severe asthmatic and can hardly hold his breath for more than 30 seconds underwater. Before we start this challenge, let's go over the 3 rules. Rule number 1, every fish must be legal and properly sized to count. Rule number 2, you can only get points for what you bring back to the boat. And rule number 3, you can only shoot once per fish. If you miss, too bad. I load my slip tip, take a dive down, and the first thing I notice is this school of amberjack. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, that scared the crap out of me. And not only am I versing a more experienced spear fisherman, but it looks like the ocean is on Vlad's side as well.
My pole spear is gone. A barracuda took it. This barracuda that's like 7 foot is just guarding my pole spear. Where's Vlad? I need his backup immediately.
Lucky for me, Vlad is a good sport and makes the dive to give me my weapon back. And the reason he's so comfortable in this position is because he's a lot bigger, so the barracuda respects him more.
There you go.
This thing is hunting me, bro.
No, just stay there and stalk you. You immediately got to bring it up to the surface like this.
Little did I know, Vlad's master class was just getting started because he goes back down under the water. And I want you to take note of how slowly he is going through the reef. He's kind of just gradually taking his time. And the reason why is because the slower that you go, the slower your heart rate goes. In turn, you wind up using less oxygen, extending the length of your dive time. He doesn't find anything worthy of shooting, so he heads back up and instantly starts checking the reef right when he catches his breath. Now, something I cut out of the footage is that he took a while at the top of the water to really make sure he caught his breath because he doesn't want to succumb to shallow water blackout. Shallow water blackout happens when you're diving in too close of intervals to one another, and over time, your mind thinks that you have enough oxygen, but eventually the lack of oxygen makes you just kind of slowly phase out. A good rule to make sure this doesn't happen to you is to spend twice as much time above the water than you do as below the water, because then the oxygen will actually renew to your brain. After securing his jack, he looked in both directions to make sure there weren't any crafty barracudas or sharks coming in his direction. And then what's worse, well, for me, is that he actually secured this fish onto the boat, which locked in the first points of this challenge for Vlad. Every species is valued differently. The less common they are to catch, the more points are earned, and the values get pretty high. Vlad just caught one of the most common fish in the Bahamas, so he gets a point. After seeing Vlad got some points on the board, I really had to make sure that I was taking every opportunity to shoot something that I could. So I take this dive, and I actually see a nice sized yellowtail, which is more points than his fish, but I wasn't able to hit it. However, when I came back up to the surface, I see this pretty massive ledge. I make sure to catch my breath so that I don't black out, and when I get to the bottom of it, I'm kind of just slowly scanning, and I see this snapper and instantly take the shot.
I can't have that barracuda get me again. I gotta get it out of the water. I'm getting up too.
I just secured a Schoolmaster snapper, which means I get 2 points and have taken the lead. There were 2 points because they're extra tasty. Now it's time to get back to the hunt, but in a different environment. I know Vlad was feeling the pressure of me in the lead because within about 2 minutes, he got his wife diving with him as a support diver. And this is way helpful because it was an extra pair of eyes on the reef. At this point, I'm kind of just taking note of how slow she's able to go, and I'm a little bit envious because I realize how much of an advantage these guys have. Not only is it an advantage, but they're also giving each other advice.
I thought it went up in those rocks.
After following his wife's lead to go check some rocks, he drops down with the crossbow, and he's really taking his time to kind of peek around the corner. There's a big snapper, and if he were to shoot this, he would be in the lead, but take note of this. Cheaters never win, and winners never cheat. This is a competition between Vlad and me. Not Vlad and his wife versus me, okay? I don't know what kind of tomfoolery this is. After he gets done checking out those rocks, he realizes he's not going to find anything, and it was time for me to confront him.
So, all right. We never discussed
discuss this. Next thing I know, there's a support unit with you. What is going? It's you and your girlfriend versus me.
Hey.
She's your spotter, bro? After some subtle convincing, Vlad agreed to keep this competition between us and keep his wife out of it. I got back into the water with nothing but confidence because now it was an even playing field. I started searching high and low, starting with low on the bottom of the reef because fish often like to hide in between the little cracks. Right here I find another snapper, which is a similar species that I found earlier, but wasn't able to hit him. And then my best friend came around, Mr. Barracuda, and I say that sarcastically. I hate these things, mainly because he stole my points earlier. Finally, I check a ledge that was truly a game changer because I found the fish worth the most points in this series. And I was bummed because I really missed my shot to get such a solid lead that Vlad would have never caught up. I wish I could say Vlad's shenanigans stopped at him doing tag team spearfishing, but it didn't. His next curveball he wanted to throw at me was a weapon upgrade, even though he had the better one. And this upgrade was in the form of a 10-foot spear, bigger than anything we had on the boat. So we agreed I get the crossbow now so that we both get an upgrade. Still anyone's game, until this fish decided to swim a little too close to me. The most frustrating part about using this crossbow is having to retrieve the arrow afterwards. And when I ran out of air, Vlad took advantage of the situation.
How does that work? Who's point?
Might be 50-50.
Without my insanely accurate shot, we would not have secured this fish. Therefore, I'm keeping the points on this one.
This is my favorite fish in the entire ocean, okay? This is a Spanish mackerel.
This fish tastes so good because it has the whitest meat in the mackerel family. They're super quick fish and take a perfect shot to catch, which is why this one is worth 5 points. But it's time for us to get back in the water. Then we got a visit from a pretty big predator.
I know we're competing and all, but I think it's important that since we're in Sharky Waters, we stay together. I'll fight to the death for you.
Let's run it.
With our new alliance formed, I had to tell Vlad about something I saw.
You good?
There's a huge grouper down there, and I can't do anything about it.
So, typical Vlad fashion, he takes a dive down and he's going super slow, kind of just scanning the reef, and finally he sees what I was trying to put him onto. What you just witnessed in the spearfishing world is called a stone shot, and it pretty much means that you hit the fish in a place where it instantly stops moving forever. This is a red grouper, one of the most delicious fish in the ocean and worth 8 points in this challenge, which is why I'm regretting telling him that it was down there because now he's in the lead. I wish this was a story where I become the hero in all of this and slowly make my way to a comeback, but Vlad is kind of a beast underwater, okay? I'm not gonna lie. And as he's taking his time searching around the reef, he decides he's gonna go on a tear. As Vlad is coming up, the worst news comes to realization. Well, for me at least. And it's that hogfish are worth double points. And that's because hogfish are one of the most delicious snappers in the ocean. When you're at the top of the water and you see a fish, it's not really the smartest to just dive right on top of them because oftentimes they can sense you coming. So it's best to be line of sighting them, or in other words, make sure that they are not able to see you as you sneak up on them. So right here, there's a fish a little bit beyond the grass flat. Vlad does a good job line of sighting it, and he actually hits the thing, but as he's coming up, well, I'll let you realize what happened.
Damn it. I just lost a lot of sweat.
The one fish that is completely acceptable to dive bomb on is the hogfish. They are really stupid. Vlad gets a perfect shot on this hogfish, but he gets off the end of his spear and Vlad isn't able to secure it. I don't care what the odds are when they're stacked against me. If I plan on winning something and say I'm going to do it, I'm not seeing anything. On top of that, there's this pesky barracuda that is just waiting to deal with fish and line us up. So I know I got to be on. Finally, I see a fish that would be worth some points in his legal size, so I walk in. Despite me missing, it actually gave me a little bit of confidence because I realized this is really anyone's game. So I pick my spear up off the ground and I see a snap.
बहुत जल्दी बैटरी खाता है लाइव चलाएगा और ये कोई परसेंट है तुरंत 2% है
And it actually kind of worked out in my
जो
favor.
एक सब्सक्राइब कर ही दिलेगा
And from the top, you can see it's kind of freaking out at the moment.
जाला
Kind of just waiting.
देखा लसन
This is a little dangerous because it can bring in
सब तरह से देख लिया है डोंट वरी
Besides, not only is he in this,
कितना निकला
he's also in it to sabotage. He holds my spear out of the fish. I'm watching all of this go down from the top, and as he swims back up, he hit my spear tip, and I attached him to it, and I refused to let him go. I think this is an amazing lesson to survive the middle of the wild animal, because I'm not sure how this fish was so swimming afterwards. I put a arrow through his entire spot, but we both got back on the boat, and since this challenge is turning out to be pretty close, we came up with a deal. So we headed to our third location, and I'm feeling good about this one. Sometimes I really think the universe just wants me to win, because from the top, I see a grouper that's not only worth the highest points, but it's playing hide and seek with me right behind the sea fin. I'm not able to capitalize, and when I get back to the top, Vlad is sitting there waiting. Eventually, he starts to take long strides towards the bottom of the ocean. At this rate, I'm not able to see exactly what he's looking at, but I see he's picking up speed, so he must see something. As Vlad comes up, I have two jobs, making sure he doesn't black out and watching out for sharks. Vlad has successfully secured the mutton, which means he gets double points. Mutton snappers are one of the biggest snappers in the snapper family. I've got to find a way to make a comeback in this competition because I really don't want to face the punishment if I lose.
I need to hold on to her right now. I need something that will make this person. They're fine. They're getting freaked out. They're heavily. I need a massive fish.
This is Coach CJ. He's an avid spear fisherman that's targeted thousands of different species over a 12-year period. He might as well be a walking encyclopedia for the ocean. So if anyone can lead me to victory, it's him. And just when you thought sharks weren't that big of a threat, this happens. We see a good-sized hogfish at the bottom of the ocean, and we're both catching our breath and start our descent. Because I have a ranged weapon, I'm looking to take my shot first. So I line up perfectly, whip it back, and I miss. Okay, newsflash. And Vlad does this.
Hey, who's shark?
Well, he just secured another hogfish, aka the double points fish. Vlad just seems to be doing everything right, so rather than me trying to follow my instinct, which clearly isn't working, sometimes you just gotta fake it till you make it and copy the people that are doing it best. I take very close note of everywhere he's going. I'm really just kind of stalking Vlad more than the Barracuda was stalking me earlier. As I'm doing it, it actually worked because I found a pretty good sized hogfish that was stalking him as well. I nailed it, but I didn't stone it. And remember, I always have to collect my arrow, and that shark is still in the area, so... Vlad decides to be a good sport and heads down to the bottom. You can see he is definitely stressing about a shark taking him out on the left, but he is looking around and it's real stirred up. For something to be stirred up, it pretty much means that all the sand is kicked up. After poking around with his flashlight a little bit, he finds my arrow, but it's not really looking like it's in the best condition. He does a quick take over his shoulder to make sure a shark isn't going to eat him, and then comes to tell me the bad news.
It's a little bit, though. God, come on. I told you it was big fish, bro. So lame, so lame.
Now I'm all for being competitive, guys, but as I was swimming around, I kind of started to realize that I definitely hit my limit. I started to get dehydrated, and if I were to continue diving, it would actually be really dangerous.
Oh, I'm at my limit. I'll walk it out.
Now, just because I was at my limit does not mean Vlad was at his, and he finally saw the last fish on the chart. Vlad absolutely stoned this fish. This is a tiger grouper. It's a fake tooth grouper. It tastes different than the rest, and you can really only find them in the Bahamas. And for that reason, it's worth 10 points.
Alright, so I'm at the point where I feel my dance and I start to go up over here. It's very important to your body, especially when you're diving. The ocean is not something you have to do.
on this challenge. Spearfish that will give me the lead. You better either spear a whale or something worth double points.
I think the hogfish was double points, right?
CJ did help me get some points on the board, but unfortunately it wasn't enough for me to take the lead. So it's time to head back to the dock and face it. This bucket contains the guts of a few different species, and it smells horrible. Flat one, fair and square. So it's time for me to take my fish back. Now that I smell like fish, it's time for me to cook a 5-star meal. There's just one more secret location I have to take you to. My cameraman isn't able to follow me into the water, and because of that, I'm completely on my own. All I can hope for is that as I get into the water, there isn't something waiting. Immediately when I got in the water, I saw this school of culture. What they're doing in this clip is their own defense mechanism called schooling. They're pretty much moving so similarly and fast that it's extremely difficult to single one out. When I'm in the middle of the baseball, half the school goes to the right and the other half goes to the left. Eventually, when you get to the end of it, you see the entire ball swim off into the distance. Something a little higher up on the food chain is a nurse shark. Lucky for me, their main diet consists of crustaceans, which is why you see them moving very close to the seafloor most of the time. They're using their electromagnetic senses to locate their next meal, hopefully being like a crab or a lobster. This is also why they're able to squeeze into places they look like they've never been. One of my favorite things to do is play with these guys because they kind of remind me of giant sea puppy. They'll turn and look at me like, hey, what are you doing over there? Sometimes I also like to be bold and just straight pick them up. When I got close to this guy, I saw that he had a massive hook stuck in his bottom lip. This was especially sad because he looked so cute from this angle, even though he's such a horse shark. These moments always kind of tear me internally because I never know what to do. Like, the animal activist in me really wants to help this shark, but the other part of me knows that trying to get a hook out of the mouth of a shark underwater is probably not the best thing. I decided the best way to earn this guy's friendship is to get him a meal. Even though I was hungry, I was going to put him first. So I caught this blue gunner, which is in my left hand right now. This is a fish that you usually catch goes really fast by you, and I was lucky enough to grab this guy, and instantly I thought of my shark friend. I go to the bottom, and even though he was being a little shy, he took it eventually. And in this clip, you can see he actually ate the whole thing. As he swam off into the distance, all I could think about was how if he ran into a stingray, that stingray would be an absolute gone. The Atlantic stingray relies mainly on camouflage to make sure it's never seen. They're also able to disappear into the sand. Their only downfall is that I'm pretty sure they have a very low IQ because this guy thinks he's good at camouflage and understanding like or swimming, I guess. Another member of the family is the guitar fish, and I'm sure you can see why they get their name. These guys spend their lives between 5 and 100 feet searching the ocean for invertebrates like shrimp, worms, clams. They have the best environmental advantage when on top of a grassy area. You can see here when he stops for a second, he practically like moves. It's a good thing too because unlike most members of the ray family, he has no horns on his tail. He's completely defenseless. Online it says they're critically endangered, so this is a super cool one. Something I don't see on the reef as often is a spotted eagle ray. These guys are a protected species in the category near threatened. They spend most of their time gliding across the ocean looking for different batches of mollusks. You can see in this clip he's using his snout to probe the seafloor. He's looking for worms and anything else he can get. Something no one will ever understand is how fast these things swim. When I tell you I was sprint swimming just to keep up with them, I just looked it up and apparently they swim like 30 miles an hour. Something to be careful of around these guys is that they have a venomous spine in the back of their tail. If you're not careful, this thing could totally do that. Seeing one of these creatures always makes me gasp. Part of me because it's so large and I think it's a shark coming. But another part just because it's so beautiful. I grew up watching Pokemon and I feel like this is a modern day Articuno flying through the sky. You can see a spotted eagle ray between 5 and 200 feet of water in depth. They get up to 16 feet in detail. Something a little bit more common on this reef is the porcupine fin. These guys are nearly impossible to get on camera. If you find yourself really wanting to get one on camera, your best bet is to go and corner them in a cave. That way they're literally not able to escape you. And you can see this fish is showing me his whole body. He's trying to intimidate me so that it gets away from me. This is my favorite fish of all time on the reef. It's called a French. The reason why is because they go through such drastic changes from a kid to it. And this is one when it's fully grown up. They completely change their pattern. And on top of that, they're also monogamous. So if these guys fall in love and their partner dies, they'll never find another mate. After swimming 30 miles an hour on an empty stomach, I am starving. Now you can't just run in and get shot at any fish that flies by. Because you'll miss. Just take your time stalking your prey behind schools. The fish that are actively hunting the reef are better targets because they're preoccupied with this right here is perfect. There's a big growth snap. Notice as I approach, she doesn't get spooked. This is a good sign. Things will be breath. Go down and
that we've done every location, it's time to make the best lobster you've ever seen. 10-pound lobster mac and cheese. My favorite. It's really everyone's favorite. This is a 10-pound lobster. However, last night I absolutely demolished an 8-pound lobster. So I was thinking to myself, why just do a 10-pound lobster when we could have 16 pounds? This lobster is going to watch his friends get cooked, the whole life cycle going down right in front of him. Chef, what we're going to do is start boiling the water. In the past, I used to not have a big pot, right? That is no longer an issue. We have a pot bigger than the issue is making it boil. There's so much water. As we're waiting for the water to boil, we have a couple of prep steps to do. But that's what I love about this recipe. It's really, really easy. Like, all you do is wait for the water to boil, put things in the heat before you know you have to make it. We're going to start by prepping. On the cheese plate right now, we have oyster cheese, pepper jack, holy jack, cheddar cheese, and Gouda. My personal favorite is the cheese. That's what we get all cheesy and like. It's going to have those really long cheese. Most people like waffle hands. I think it tastes amazing. Now, the only cheese that's a special taste is no cheese. It's not really going to work together. So then we're just going to go ahead and like this. Go with a whole block of pepper jack. I really just want to find out. Feel better, but that's not that well. Thank you. Okay, you're making progress. Oh, all right. Yeah, no, it actually looks solid. That was sweet. I feel like I'm gonna like figure that one point. Start slowly breaking my now. Fresh and great. Before you know it, your table is gonna come. Before I forget, we have to set the other one. Right, it was good time. Adding her to the wall. Wow. Actually, doing quite a bit. I'm grading myself, so. Okay, let's get back to grading. Yep. This is actually my favorite. It's like the sweetest and stickiest. It's like a oh, it's just so good. Double shred. That's not a dime. These are done. Great. 5 pounds. Which I guess makes sense. What's the water boiling? You know, with salt, with complex salt and all, you want to make your pasta water saltier than you put a lot in there. You're going to go ahead and add in your pasta. What a lot of people don't know is that in lobster, you have all these skins, and we have to make it so you have very little. Every lobster claw has a tendon in there. So pretty much you want to make sure you get all the tendons out of lobster, all the food fat, you don't like the food fat, you don't need to add like the food. Once you get all the tendons out of lobster, you just want to make sure that you grab out of it. So that you get the lobster. Oh! The process of shredding all the lobster. Okay. I know. It feels ready. I think we're something. Experiment. Ready. Okay. All right. I know I was at it. Okay. I'm stuck. Whatever I touch. Okay. We don't have any damage. I'm pretty confident. Once you have all the big pot out,
Kasih apa? Gua kasih apa? Hah? कैसा था? रात में नहीं गए इंटर पे कुछ नहीं लगे अरे
You could actually hear those guys. Like, it's so
Thank you.
Have a 6 to 8 bag.
6 to 12
Okay, you know what?
मतलब
एक ना में से क्वेश्चन पूछा सब
क्या बोलिस बा
मान नहीं एक में पूछ के ना लेकिन बीपीएससी में पूछ ले आता था ना खेले लगेंगे अब कुछ अलग है इस चक्कर में हम पिछा आ गए बढ़िया
जिंदगी में पढ़े के ना रही
तो करते जा हुलाला 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 जहाँ मिलल कुछ मिले ए मार सटिया पकड़ वाले ने
डाल में अगर फैक्ट्री खुला था है
तो पढ़े के यारी गाल फाड़ के पढ़े के
वो में एग्जाम ली
एग्जाम ना लिए थे डिग्री खाते अच्छा यूनिवर्सिटी ढूंढने पड़े अब तक हमने क्या कहा अच्छा चेन्नई चाहे कहीं दूसरा यूनिवर्सिटी अच्छा बाप दादा ये रहा बाप दादा कंपनी में काम करता हूँ तो अच्छा खासा पैसा मिलवे करे हमने कहीं दूसरा कंट्री में तो हो जा सकते रह जाए सही है तब दादा के जमाना के बढ़िए ना तो दादा कितना काम करिए तो पापा के पढ़े करते जाए बढ़िया से कितना तो दिमाग खुल करे तो अच्छा पढ़वे करते जा वो लोग दूसरा सिटी में जेते जा हमें दूसरा कंट्री में जे
बिहार बना के रह के पढ़ी
बिहार में रहते जा बिहार ना रहे बिहार एक पीस के रहे
निकाल में अगर फैक्ट्री खोली रहा तो डिग्री ना रही डिग्री में महीना में 2-4 करोड़ रुपया आए
कहाँ
फैक्ट्री
हाँ 4 करोड़ कह रहे हैं 200-400 करोड़